Thank you. Let's look now at the third area of recent work influencing school reform efforts, and that's systems theory. How many of you have studied systems? You have heard of systems theory? I know Maya has. A system is a perceived whole whose elements hang together, that's a technical term, because they continually affect each other over time and operate toward a common purpose. Examples of systems range from very small, such as a biological organism, an ecological niche, or a chemical reaction, to much larger systems such as factories, communities, families, teams, to very large systems such as the atmosphere, diseases, political entities, and industries. All organizations, no matter how large or small, are systems. Each of you is probably an element of dozens of different systems. You belong to a family, you have a workplace, you are in a school community. Think of all the things that you belong to that are systems, groups that hang together. In education, systems are nested within each other. There's a classroom, inside a school, inside a district, inside a national system. So they're all, and they're all systems within themselves, but they all impact each other. Systems thinking, understanding how these systems operate, allows us to understand how organizations and other complex groupings really function. It gives us a language for learning and acting, helps us see how we create our own reality. It points us to higher leverage solutions to chronic problems and guides us to see the structures and connections underlying the system. As a result, systems thinking enables us to change our own thinking to match the way such systems operate and change our behavior so that we are working within these complex forces to create what we want. The basic tenets of systems theory, I'll just briefly talk about these. We create the system we live in and can make it what we want. This is a tough one to live with. If you don't happen to like the organization you're in or the system that you're in, you have to admit that you helped create it. It's there because of the people that are in it and how they react. So that's empowering and also frightening. Secondly, there's no outside to blame. The system creates itself and keeps itself going. So while you can blame somebody else, it won't do you any good. The only answers are within the system itself. A system learns all the time as people learn all the time. There's a wealth of information within each system about itself. We just need to look for it. And the last one is cause and effect are not closely related in time or space. And we tend to see a problem, think we know immediately what's wrong, put a Band-Aid on it, walk away, when in fact we've simply added to the covering up of that problem, because the solution is usually not something close to it. Problems need more careful analysis. There's no quick fix. We need to figure out how to unpack problems and go deeper and deeper to find the root of them, not just what appears to be the surface answer. There's been much written and tested in the area of systems thinking applied to schools. We refer to this body of knowledge as learning organizational theory. Schools that are smart about themselves use systems theory, learn as they educate, and we call them learning organizations. Schools that are learning organizations choose to be intentional about what they learn. And they don't pick up on every new fad that comes through. If it doesn't fit within their mission or their vision, they let it go by. They're intentional about what they learn because time and people's energy is limited. A learning organization gets very clear about its shared identity, the goals, beliefs, values, mission, vision. The expertise and experience of everyone is involved in creating the fundamental beliefs, vision, and mission of the organization. Decisions are made within the organization. It comes together frequently to ask itself, what is our purpose? What are we trying to achieve, and how are we doing? It nurtures a conscious sense of belonging to a larger purpose. A learning organization builds relationships that are aligned with its intents and allows access to the game by all its players. There are no elite knowers and everybody else in a learning organization. Information is shared freely across the organization. And the organization constantly moves information about the results of the work throughout the organization. So everybody knows what's going on. Increasingly, we're seeing that information is a very powerful resource, made even more powerful when it's the organizing process or element of the system. More and more organizations are discovering that their only route to health and resilience is to open up their organizations to free-flowing information around which trustworthy employees are free to organize. Technology supports the moving of abundant information throughout the organization. Just think about how things have changed within any organization within the last 5 or 6 years through email and all of the things and Google, where there's information available to anybody at any time. Paradoxical and disturbing information is welcomed and publicly discussed. There are no secrets. If we get some information or some data that's troubling to us, we don't hide it away. We look at it. There's information there that we need to know about. The organization seeks out information that is complex and ambiguous. It looks forward to grappling with big issues. According to Peter Senge, a leading theorist in systems thinking, at the core, every organization is a product of how its members think and react and interact. Thus, the primary leverage for any organizational learning lies not in policies, budgets, or organizational charts, but in ourselves. It means shifting our point of orientation from outward to inward. In the end, the premise that organizations are the product of our thinking and interacting is powerful and liberating. It suggests that individuals and teams can affect even the most daunting organizational behaviors. Organizational barriers. These barriers were created by people's wishes, expectations, beliefs, and habits. They remain in place because they were reinforced and never challenged. Eventually, they become invisible because they're so taken for granted. Once we start to become conscious of how we think and interact and begin developing capacities to think and interact differently, we will already have begun to change our organization for the better. Learning in organizations means the continuous testing of experience and the transformation of that experience into knowledge, accessible to the whole organization and relevant to its core purpose. I want you to think now of a system that you're part of. And think about the flow of information through that system, whether it's large or small. How does information get passed around? What would you change in terms of the flow of information that would make that system more healthy and resilient? Talk to your neighbor about that.
It used to be